Hey everyone, welcome back. Another Probopass video, and today we're gonna go over, well, as we usually would do, right? Just in terms of how to use, some of these units, in terms of grids, lucky skills, all that stuff. And I usually do these much earlier, but I kind of forgot. Can you blame me? These are not incredibly interesting units. I mean, they're good. Don't get me wrong, they're good, but it's just like two supports. There's not too much to talk about because support grids are generally, well, it's either there's way too much stuff and you can't pick up anything, and then there's just not that much stuff to pick up. And these, I'd say, rather they fall into the there's not too much stuff to really pick up category, right? And there's Kahili, which should be pretty straightforward. But anyways, regardless, let's do this. So anyways, let's start with Kahili. So starting off, Kahili, obviously. Being a damage dealer, the main way you want to do damage dealing with Kahili, for the most part, is you want to spam Peck. Well, you want to get your attack buffs, all the stuff maxed out, right? Attack, and then just spam Peck, and then once you got your sync move going, you sync the sync because you have a very powerful sync move because of the very high physical attack stat, and then that's a 300 power sync move. So yeah, the reason why you don't want to use Beak Blast generally, I'm not saying never use it, but for the most part, Peck is just a bit better because of the fact that Beak Blast does take 2 turns to actually hit the opponent, and these 2-turn moves only count towards 1 sync move countdown, so you get your sync slower, right? Again, Beak Blast, if you use timing in a good timing way, right, could be good, but generally your sync is just better, right? Again, in certain scenarios might be of some value, but most time your sync is more valuable because it's a very powerful sync. So anyways, let's talk about this, right? So in terms of a lucky skill, as usual, right, with damage dealers you want crit strike too, right? So especially damage dealers like Kahili that could do some damage on the sync. I guess you could go for super power 3 if you want, since I would highly doubt a lot of people would be really using Kahili to do damage outside of flying weak stages, because why would you use Kahili against non-flying stages? Right, so I guess you could do super power 3 there as well. If you want, you could give it more defense crush for some reason, but I'd say, again, crit strike 2, super power 3, maybe go for those. So anyways, in terms of the grid, right, let's just go straight out the max grid, because I'm assuming most people have her at least 3 out of 5, alright? It's Kahili. So, alright, let's talk about it. So again, we want the nuke stuff. So we want Haymaker down here, we want the sync move power-ups, right? And those are the main stuff we want. Defense crush on Peck is also very nice, right, to have. Again, these aren't, must-haves, but it's nice to have, right? Definitely nice to have, because again, most of the time you are spamming Peck. And that's when you debuff the opponent's damage, you do more damage yourself, obviously, right? I'd argue it's probably, in certain team comps, probably even more important than like the sync stuff, right? But yeah, you want that stuff, so just connect these dots and you will have, well, it was pretty basic sync nuke grid over here, right? There is another option where you could go for the super preparation 4 over here to have a super effective up on your sync as well. It does cost you a bit though in the energy section, so you might have to drop a few things like these sync move power up nodes, right? And yeah, maybe it is. You still can't get it, man. Let's see. Would that work? Ah, there we go. We're good. So we have defense crush here. You got super preparation, extra attack plus 20, right? And then Haymaker over here. So I guess that's another way you could do that. I wouldn't really worry about any of this other stuff. I mean, you have a 30% physical attack reduction just for like Beak Blast, Inspire R, but those are very niche, very niche scenarios where you'd ever run something like that. Right, as for some other stuff, Shielding Strike on second wind I won't care too much about either, right? Eagle Eye, I mean, you generally want to, like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal. If you really, like, need to, right, you could just use your trainer move to get a critical hit next, right before you sync, because, like, you crit or not on Peck is not the biggest heal in the world. Peck's not going to do you that much damage, right? Let's be real. So yeah, I think something like this would be good if you want the super preparation, right? If you don't, then just the extra single power-ups is nice as well. So now let's talk a bit about the team comp. This is a comp, if you want to get the most out of Kahili, this is probably what you want to run if you're just a huge Kahili fan. You want Kahili to do the best that you want. You kind of want to run this, right? So you got Flying Zone set by Annie Skyla, and then you have Sonya Yamper here maxing out the crit and physical attack buffs. Does have to be a 3 out of 5, right? And then also Sonya Yamper debuffing the opponent's physical defense as well. But obviously, as you could probably tell, the glaring obvious thing in this team comp is, why would you nuke with Kahili when you have Annie Skyla on team? Which is, again, Kahili is a very, very good nuker. Annie Skyla is much, much better. Annie Skyla's an insane nuker. So this is only if you're just a huge Kahili fan, you want Kahili to do the best in the team. But otherwise, you probably nuke with Skyla, and then you wouldn't really want to run Kahili at all, in fact. So that's kind of Kahili's like biggest issue. She doesn't really have what she does is very, very good, but in the best case scenario where she does that stuff, the thing that she does very, very good, she has zero value at all, right? Zero value. Because again, if you have her on the same team with Annie Skyla, you will not sync with Kahili. And if Kahili is not syncing, Kahili is doing nothing, right? Even your defense crushes don't really do anything because Skyla is a special striker, right? So she has zero value otherwise, unfortunately. But if you don't have Annie Skyla, right? If you don't have Annie Skyla, then, you know, you could be up to some better stuff, right? For Kahili, you could actually use Kahili to, you know, help you fight some flying weak stages. In this case, right, just any of these you know, flying type damage healers would definitely, you know, be helpful, right? Something like a Annie Steven, right? Maybe, you know, this holiday Skyla, Eviltal, Gyarados maybe. Although if you do want to run Gyarados slash Togekiss or whatever, you would need a mixed, you know, buffer instead of a physical buffer, right? So that is, I guess, the only issue there. Or yeah, but like stuff like Annie Steven, you can just run a physical buffer, right? The one I wouldn't really go for is like Pidgeot, because like Pidgeot's good and all, right? You just have to like sync with Pidgeot to get the Hurricane, or else if you're not using Hurricane, you're not really doing damage to Pidgeot, right? Which is obviously the big issue with Pidgeot, right? But otherwise, all these other, so you could run, you know, to supplement her damage outside of the 3 turns where she's not sinking, because again, she does big damage on her sync, but outside of the turns that she does sync damage, she doesn't really do any damage. So something like an Annie Steven would definitely help a lot, and she could also help Annie Steven a lot by debuffing the opponent's physical defense, so that Annie Steven's, you know, Dragon Ascents do more damage. So something like that, I feel like, could definitely be useful here. Moving on, let's talk a bit about Roxanne and Probopass, right? So we all know Roxanne's a really great free-to-play support even before her grid, and again, her grid doesn't really help her that much. It just makes what she already did more complete, right? So it's mostly the MP refreshes that she gets. So obviously, in terms of team comps, again, we don't really go into specifics for support team comps, but just any team that could use speed buffs, could use defense buffs, could use special attack buffs. Roxanne is your girl. Really easy, cheap unit, right? That could do all that stuff. If you need someone to maybe guard an AoE move once in a while, you know, got a wide guard there as well, which could be really nice. In terms of her stats, she does have a very big glaring weakness at the speed stat over here, right? Even at 5-star, her speed is not very good. However, makes up for it for obviously buffing your whole team's speed, so that should not be too much of an issue. Her defense, special defense, is very good. However, her HP stat is not very high, right? So she could seem a bit deceptively defensive, right? Her attack and special attack stats are basically worthless, so Certain Sand 5 is a bit of a meme. So anyways, as for her lucky skill, if you want to run her as tanks, something like, again, a Vigilance would be nice, health healing maybe, but yeah, mainly Vigilance. You don't want to get crit, so that would be cool. So in terms of her grid, right, so the big ones you're trying to go for over here are Shielded 1 or MP Refresh, depends on the energy cost, right? You only want one of these two. And where is it? Oh, Study Buddies MP Refresh over here as well. So those are the big ones you really want to get to for the most part. In terms of other things, Wide Guard MP Refresh, maybe if you really need her to use Wide Guard to, you know, to guard against some big AoE attacks, maybe, right? Maybe you want to go for a move gauge refresh on your Ancient Power, just so, well, it just helps your team's gauges a bit, but again, you do buff your team's speed, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? So again, stuff like the defense stuff, so like, for example, if you're doing grid where you pick up both of these, and then you, in this scenario, you do have enough to pick up shielded, I would recommend shielded over MP refresh, right? Just because it's more of a guaranteed thing, right? With shielded over here. So, anyways, let's see what else do we have here. For the rest, it really kind of depends, right? Because the upside for picking MP refresh, because there's not, again, there's no, there is an upside, which is if you do pick up MP refresh, it is cheaper, actually. Actually, you don't have to. Oh, you know what? Yeah, no. You don't have to pick up. You could pick up both if you want to also go for endurance over here. Is what I'm trying to say. Laboriously trying to get to that point, but yeah, pick up both. You do have endurance available for you as well, which is nice. Survive an extra hit, always good. But if you don't, you know, care too much about that, you could again obviously keep on bending over here so defense don't be lowered, and you could maybe pick up block and heal if you really want. It's not that much of a heal though, right? It's just one block unless you get an MP refresh, right? The MP refresh I wouldn't really count on it because it's MP refresh 2 on a 1 base MP move, so the chance of that MP refreshing is not extremely high, right? So yeah, I guess those are some options you could go for. I don't care too much about Survivor Mentality. You could also go for Barricade Buddies if you want. It's only going to be a +2/+3 if you get an MP refresh on Study Buddies. I mean, most of the time you will be getting +3. Like, if you need, right, max special attack, you just reset until you get an MP refresh, right? So you could definitely do that, right? Then, you know, as for the rest, you can maybe pick up like a Stalwart or whatever, right? Just to use the rest of your stuff. So yeah, that's, I guess, just some grids for Roxanne over here, right? Last one we're gonna talk about over here is Marley and Arcanine, which has one of the biggest like glow ups in like Pokemon Masters history. Went from a honestly useless borderline, I wouldn't even say borderline use, just if it weren't for Gauntlet to save all units in the game, be honest, when would you ever use Marley before she got a grid, right? She's one of the bottom 3 supports in the game, and now with this grid, she's actually really nice. She's a fantastic unit to top off as a top off support, right? If your you know, offensive, you know, unit doesn't really get all the buffs, but has some buffs for themselves, right? You could have Team Sharp Entry to max out their crit. You could have Flag Bearer 3 to max out their attack, right? If they're at +4 attack, or Hype Up to max out their special attack. Like, she's just very good, right? Well, in comparison to how bad she was before. She's not like a crazy. She's not like SD or Sport or whatever, right? But definitely much better. All right, if we look at its stats, has very good HP. Speed's not terrible. Defenses are good. Like, look at, like, she's like, these tank stats are like monstrous, right? Monstrous tank stats. And again, really nice speed here as well. On top of that, you have X Speed All for speed buffs for your team. Then we're standing strong, which gives status condition defense for your team, which also removes status conditions from your team as well if anyone already had any before the shield. So that's really nice, right? So yeah, you have Flame Wheel's chance to burn and Flamethrower chance to burn, obviously. So all right, in terms of, again, what teams you want to put her in, just teams that really need, you know, need that last bit of top off, that could need some speed, that could use someone to tank some hits, right? She could definitely be a really good option there if my mic is held down. And yeah, those teams, right? It just depends on your damage healer. Again, the supports, they could obviously be used in many different circumstances. Just really depends on our damage healer, what they need, right? So in terms of lucky skill, you could go vigilance, right? You could go vigilance just to make sure you don't get crit. Alright, again, all these other tank lucky skill stuff could be nice too, but mainly I'd say just still vigilance. Alright, so going into her grid. Her grid is kind of like a Swiss Army knife, right? You pick up what you need for the job. Because she has a lot of things I could do, a lot of nodes I could do, a lot of different things that could fit a lot of different teams, that could fit versus a lot of different opponents. And again, it just really depends on what you want to pick up over here, right? So I'd say most of the time you probably would want Team Sharp entry, because why else would you really bring Marley in your team, right? Terrify if you have anyone who would use some physical attack down multipliers, but otherwise I'd say hit and heal is probably a bit better, just so you get that extra gradual healing as a tank as well, right? As for some other stuff, again, it really depends on what you're trying to do with your team. Does your damage healer need physical attack buffs, or does your damage healer need special attack buffs? If it needs physical attack buffs, obviously come up here, pick up Flag Bearer 3. If you need special attack buffs, come down here, pick up Hype Up 3. I know you could pick up both, but you don't want to have both on at the same time if you don't need it. If you need it, then sure. If your damage healer, is like, I don't know, something like a Jigglypuff, right, that has both physical and special, right, then okay, you could pick up both. But otherwise, I'd say just stick to one, right? Again, depending on which one you need. If you are up here though, you do have access to Hostile Environment 4, which is very nice if you want to burn the opponent as well. If there's any units on your team that has any burn multipliers, that could definitely be nice. Pick up Scorcher, increase the amount of damage the opponent takes from being burned, although I wouldn't, I'm not a huge fan personally. I'd much rather prefer going for the Pep Rally on X speed, right? Just so you make sure you can max out your team's speed with Arcanine over here, which I find much more valuable than something like a Scorcher, right? You could go for the Shielded. I'm not a huge fan because it's only 1 MP, right? Whereas her trainer move is only 1 MP, so you're really only getting +1 physical defense from that, and then you have to go through either a 8 energy or 7 energy cost, or I guess this would also be a 7 energy cost difference over here just to get this thing that also costs 10 energy. So I think this is not that good. But yeah, there's not too much to really talk about in terms of her grid. It just depends on, well, what do you need for your team, right? If you need physical, go stuff up there. If you want special, go for stuff down here. You also have group fire card, which is very nice against, well, fire attacking enemies. Obviously completely useless against opponents that don't have fire attacks, right? So, but again, fire attack enemies, it's definitely very nice, right? So that's another option. That's definitely another option. But yeah, I'd say that's most of what we really have to talk about here. So anyways, that's me this one. I guess I'll be all in general. Guys, think of the comments down below. Like, share this video, for my channel for some more Probopass content. See you guys in the next one then.